So by now, I'm sure many of you know who Meghan McCain is. She's the woman from The View who will not stop reminding us that John McCain is her father every time she says something idiotic and has nowhere to pivot to. That's just kind of become her thing. Some of you may know her as a woman who cried because Ilhan Omar said Israel influences our politicians with money like most other superpowered nations. That was really offensive to her. I don't know why it is, but that's that's the character she plays. That's the character she plays. So, unfortunately, she is back at it again. Now, most of you are familiar with at this point the incident that happened at the synagogue in California. A young man, 19 years old, a former nursing student who thinks that Adolf Hitler is his idol and is of the right-wing ideology, killed a woman in an attempt to commit a mass murder. Now, most of us recognize what this is, but of course, Meghan McCain had a different take. Take a look.
Much more quickly than they could with Christ Church, but that is a real issue.
Yeah, and one that I think that Silicon Valley should have their feet held to the fire. I do think when we're having conversations about anti-Semitism, we should be looking at the most extreme on both sides. And I would bring up Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and some of her comments that got so much attention. And in my opinion, Nancy Pelosi wasn't hard enough in her response to her, trafficking in anti-Semitic language, talking about all about the Benjamins and how Jewish people had hypnotized the world. So I think when you're talking about rhetoric and you want to talk about President Trump, and by the way, I agree that he needs to have his feet held to the fire as well, but we're talking about it on both sides of the aisle as well.
But I think part of this is yes, it occurred at a...
Yeah. Yep. That just happened. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even know where to start. Well, let's start about the fact that this is what happens when you're trying to play a character. Sometimes you don't know when to turn your character off. I mean, that's a thing, by the way. Like, for example, a lot of people don't know Tucker Carlson used to work for CNN. Tucker Carlson was a liberal, but Fox News pays liberals a little bit better if you're willing to say what they want you to say, because you're bringing your audience with you, and that's a thing. So Meghan McCain used to be a liberal. But she realized she could gain more clout as a conservative who is constantly embodying her father's values and constantly name dropping John McCain's name as if that's supposed to hold some value to us. And in a situation where a woman lost her life because she was of Jewish faith while she was at a synagogue mourning a family member, Meghan McCain tries to play the both sidism nonsense, but she does it pretty horribly. Because did you actually hear her legitimately go into an in-depth critique of the right or anyone on the right? No, she said, I guess we should hold Trump's feet to the fire too. But look at what Ilhan Omar said. She tried to claim that Ilhan Omar said that Jewish people hypnotize the world. That is not what Ilhan Omar said. What Ilhan Omar said is that Israel uses its money to hypnotize the world. That's not too far-fetched considering America uses our money to hypnotize the world and hypnotize politicians. Money tends to do that to people. But her attempt to conflate Israel and Jewish people, as in if you're Israeli or if the Israeli government automatically favors or acts to the benefit of all Jewish people, which actually is not true. Ask any Ethiopian Jew or any African or Jewish person of darker of a darker race. Ask any of them how Israel treats them, despite the fact that they've been Jewish for generations. But her attempt to say that Israel benefits all Jewish people and is trying to and represents all Jewish people, and conversely saying all Jewish people support Israel and everything it does based off of nothing other than the fact that they are Jewish, is anti-Semitism You nitwit? Like, really? Do you not see the irony in the shit you say sometimes? You're going to sit here and lie about what Ilhan Omar said. At a certain point, when are we going to be able to hold our these talking heads accountable? Because do you understand that Ilhan Omar had an attack on her life because of people like you? And then you try to indirectly associate her, indirectly blame her for this synagogue nonsense. Did you speak up when Trump tried to tacitly associate 9/11 with Ilhan and almost got her killed? Hell, we don't even know if that's still not a possibility. You've had absolutely nothing to say, Meghan. Did you even have the balls to call this murderer what he was? A hyper right-wing Christian extremist. That's what he was. One of yours. For all of the loose claims that you all try to make about Muslims and how dangerous they are, how we have to protect ourselves from these Muslim extremists and they're trying to take over the country. How many synagogues, because y'all swear they hate Jewish people. You swear that because Ilhan is Muslim, she dislikes Jewish people. How many Muslims have shot up synagogues in the last 20 years in the United States? How many? I can't think of one. One single time. How many times have we heard of a hate crime here in the United States? We have plenty of Jewish people. We have plenty of Muslims. I used to live in a primarily Jewish area in South Florida. Not one time have they ever gone to me, man, these Muslims, man, they out here kneecapping us. You know, we get driving while being Jewish. Like we getting pulled over for our curly hair. No, not one time. In fact, down here, Muslims and Jewish people get along pretty well. They own businesses together. Not one single time. But let me ask you this, Meghan. How often have we heard of right-wing Christian extremists shooting up churches, movie theaters, shooting up churches because they're black, shooting up synagogues because they're Jewish, shooting up mosques or burning down mosques because they're Muslim? You were trying to project a problem because it works out for the establishment agenda, of course. You have to demonize and dehumanize. That's the only way we're going to be able to go to the Middle East and kill a bunch of Muslims. You have to dehumanize. You have to make everybody believe that they're animals and that they're the problem. And that's what Meghan, that's what her job is to manufacture consent via dehumanization. The problem is staring you right in the face, Meghan, and for anyone who agrees with her. It isn't Muslims. It isn't Mexicans. It isn't Hondurans. It isn't Africans, Somalis, Sudanese, or otherwise. It isn't Eastern Europeans. It isn't the Yemenis. It is right-wing Christian extremists. It is this ideology of theocratic authoritarianism that you all have pushed on America steadily and frequently over the last 70 to 80 years, despite the fact that our country is supposed to be separate from the church. That was what was supposed to make us unique from Europe, because that symbiotic relationship that the government had with the church in Europe was a lot of the causes, or caused a lot of the problems that Europe is still experiencing today. That is why we were meant to keep the church separate from the state, but that's clearly not happening. Why? Because the church acted in an authoritarian manner as well, and then the kings and queens will use the church to validate their authoritarianism. It is not the Muslims who come here to escape their houses getting bombed that are the problem. It isn't Ilhan Omar who's the problem. These people, like Meghan McCain, try and use the Old Testament, or at least the parts that they like, that work for their agenda to push this idea of bowing down to authority, refusing to question authority. It's the Old Testament or the Torah if you're Jewish, but that this idea of bowing down to authority. In the Old Testament, as far as the Bible is concerned, it's the idea of what's called blind faith. But if you are a Christian in the most strict sense, then you're not living, supposedly, you're not living by the Old Testament, you're living by the new one. And Christ was against religion. Christ actually didn't believe in blind faith. He didn't. You know what he believed in? Show and prove. You know what Jesus believed in? Because that's what this is why you can tell. That's like, okay, so if these people are claiming to be right, like Dylan Roof, right-wing Christian extremists, shooting up a church full of black people. How can that guy be a Christian? Because he isn't the true definition of what's called of a Christian. Christ was against religion because of things like this. Christ was against religion because it required loyalty to government too. Christ didn't believe in blind faith because when they challenged him, guess what he said? How we know you're Jesus or you're God's son? What? Boy, you ain't heard? Hey, bring that water over here. Wine, drink up. Turn up on me tonight. Y'all hungry? Bring that wheat over here too. Bread, Believe me now, there wasn't a blind faith component to Jesus, the guy that they're supposedly living their lives by. It doesn't matter if you believe in him or not. My point is that if that was the ideology that America was using religion to live by, or the philosophy that America was using religion to live by, we wouldn't see so many right-wing Christian extremists shooting up synagogues and burning down mosques and shooting up churches, claiming that Adolf Hitler is their damn idol. But you don't have to look at me or listen to what I'm saying for you to understand this. When we overthrow a government, who do we put in charge? We put the people in charge who best represent our interests and are emblematic of the ideologies we use to keep our people at bay. Now, it may look different. They may call themselves a different religion, but it's authoritarian on the left. I always tell people all the time, like, we have what I call democratic dictatorship or representative dictatorship. In other words, all the states are represented. We have senators and Congress people, and we even get to quote unquote elect the president. But they're still authoritarian in nature. Just because you switch it out every 4 to 8 years doesn't mean he's not authoritarian or she's not authoritarian. Because once they get that power, they're willing to do whatever they can to make sure that they can stay in as long as possible. And even if they don't hold the office, they still maintain that power long after they leave, which is even scarier. And if you notice, and I don't know if y'all have figured this out, except for Donald Trump, I believe, every president is a legacy. They're related to each other in some way, form, or fashion. They have legacy behind them, just like authoritarian monarchies. And what are the governments that we implement overseas? The same thing. They're authoritarian, theocratic dictatorships. Why? Because it's a lot easier to control the masses when they have to just listen to you and you get punished for believing anything else. That is the problem, Megan. You don't get to blame Ilhan Omar for this. This is people like you. You're going to sit here and try to both sidism shit. That was the weakest both sides. And I mean, I've heard some pretty bad both sidism arguments coming from the right, but you couldn't even call this man what he was. Nor could you defend Ilhan whenever her life was threatened. Nor could you call out Trump. Say, I believe in calling out Trump. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You did not call him out. You did not do it. It would have been, if you would have called out Trump and defended Ilhan, oh my God, the internet would have broke. We would have all covered it. We would have seen it everywhere. We would have been extremely surprised and possibly even, dare I say, impressed. But you didn't, because you're a hypocrite. And that whatever you want to call it, theological hypocrisy that you all like to push is the reason this happened. Because that man that killed that woman in that synagogue thinks that Jesus is the Jesus that y'all pitch, rather than the philosophy of loving everyone on this planet, cherishing everyone regardless of religion, of walking with the poor, the sickly, and making sure that they are taken care of. Jesus Christ wouldn't cut Medicare for all. Jesus Christ wouldn't be in a constant war, nor would he be pushing for regime change with Venezuela. Jesus Christ wouldn't be trying to blame Republicans or Democrats. Jesus Christ will hold each individual accountable. Expect and hope for the best out of each individual. And he would not be trying to blame the death of a Jewish woman on Ilhan Omar. That's for damn sure. We'd love to know what your thoughts are about this. Leave your likes and your comments below. Remember, more than anything else, people, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mika Says Sukasa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.